record this. All right, so we have about 13 persons. Right, so morning to all. I hope everybody is okay. Hope you're trying to stay safe with regards to this situation that we are in. Really uncharted waters for a lot of people, so it's new. Follow the instructions, you know, keep safe, continue to improve in your hygiene in terms of, in and out the house, the touching of the face, etc., and just do what you can and really truly be safe. This is not something that we want to get, and just trying to make sure that everything is fine. So we're jumping into more or less what will be considered our last lecture. He did say that there were a couple things he may want to tie up and may squeeze in a lecture 11. So I'm not sure, but I will certainly let you know during the course of the week if next week, Saturday, we're going to have anything happening. So what has to happen though next week is we will probably do something concerning CW2. So CW1, I'm quite sure that you guys would be extremely happy with what was put forward. I'm not. I don't know, English is a funny language, but nevertheless, one of the reasons why I didn't want to send out any samples and stuff like that and whatever have you, because we've seemed to be having a constant mistake. But I am sure those of you who would have taken heed with what I would have released and did the work, you would have definitely been happy with CW1. So nevertheless, that's now behind us, and we will look at concentrating on CW2, on choosing a leader, on basically getting two other leaders to compare against that leader. I'm not sure if he's going to change the word count, but at this stage, I'm thinking not, because it's already almost at the end of the program, and you just have 2 weeks or 3 weeks to submit CW2. But nevertheless, I am still hoping that if he can probably just extend it by 500 would be nice. 2000, as I said, look at an abstract as an option. So you can describe the company, describe the style that you're looking at, and probably why you have chosen that particular leader. So all in all, it should not be a big issue. I think it's pretty decent for us to just making sure that nobody is raising their hands. Yeah, so I just want to make sure that you guys get the advantage and don't get penalized from the marking scheme. So they're very tight on the word count. They're very tight on referencing. So those are two things that you need to if you want to, get into that top level of marks and easy marks to get. Please follow the format, follow what's actually happening itself with that standpoint, and just get those marks itself. It's an easy 15 marks alone in those instances with regards to formatting and referencing. Nevertheless, again, CW2 is out already, and I'm just trying to see if there can be a slight modification to the word count. So we'll send that information out during the week in terms of what and how a format should look at, and maybe just tie up next week, Saturday, with the remaining of what he wants to cover for lecture 11, and going over CW2. So again, we jump into Leadership and Organization, Unit 10, Culture and Performance. Interesting concept in terms of culture and performance and how it plays a huge part. Want to make sure that you guys understand that totally. And just making sure everybody is muted. Right, so jumping into it. Kenichi Omahe, analysis is critical starting point of strategic thinking. in anything that we do itself, critical thinking obviously allows us to make what we call informed decisions. It's not emotion. It's not just based on a knee-jerk reaction. Some quarters within the political scene would probably say that the government is in a knee-jerk reaction with what's happening. I mean, it is debatable. I'm not sure. I clearly hope it's not. So it's interesting what Kenichi Omahe is saying. Um, Laszlo Birini, basically, things are always different. The art is figuring out which differences matter. Interesting statement. And again, at the end of the day, as we would say colloquially, the candle is costing more than the funeral. You know, the small things, does it matter? Does it really add up to the end to really make such a big issue? Does it really, truly make sense to berate an employee over something that's small? Or is it easy to just document it as a shortfall and move on? I mean, what is the best approach? So it's really interesting how these quotes can actually have an effect on us with regards to the style that we choose in terms of leadership. So jumping into this particular lecture, Heller in 1997, there's nothing accidental about cultural strength. There is a relationship between an organization culture and its performance. So if you are lackadaisical, you know, we've heard so many negative things about state enterprises. We've heard negative things about the civil service. And can we actually use Heller's statement here to say that the culture in these organizations are what causes its performance to be in that particular manner? What has changed at, say, for instance, the state enterprise Caribbean Airlines? You know, is their leader now, is he really making a cultural change in the organization? And it's now being reflected in its performance? Why can't the same be said for some other state enterprises? What's happening with regards to WASA? What's happening with regards to PTSE? What's the challenges we see there itself? And where do you believe, if you got the opportunity to basically run that company for 6 months, what changes would you make based on what you would have done in this particular course, especially, you know, leadership and how leadership and organization plays a part? So it's interesting. It's no secret that if you don't have the right culture, you know, you are not going to get the performance. If you have something that you're constantly being negative about to something, obviously that person or that situation is not going to get better. How do we build that light at the end of the tunnel, as we would say? How do you have that encouragement? It's very much the case here with the current situation that we are in with regards to COVID-19. You know, where's the culture in this? Where's, right, let's get this done. Oh no, God is a Trini, you know, nothing's going to happen. That's not happening with it. I mean, I can make inferences, which from a statistical standpoint, because of we're not testing properly, or we're not testing a wide range. We are testing people based on symptoms. However, that testing based on symptoms and the positive results, the figure is kind of a little bit on the horrendous case, because we're approaching 20%. And I mean, if we make the inferences to say, right, let's test on a larger scale, and we use this 17.4% positive results, I mean, that's going to be, wow, in the entire population of 1.3, that's going to be 200 something thousand people. So we would just kind of say, whoa, wow, what do we do now? You know, do we throw up our hands and say we give up and whatever have you? So we have to have that culture to say, hey, look, listen, we can turn things around. Right? So let's say we're not going to have 220,000 people being being infected. Let's lock down. Let's see what's happening. I mean, a lot of countries have actually took the decision to actually be state of emergency. Is that good? Is it bad? I mean, how do we evaluate that? You know, I mean, from that perspective, there are lots of collateral damage that's going to happen. Where does the government see the input is? What about all the what we would consider non-essential but supports our economy? You know, I'm sure the ladies in class, you know, oh, I can't go to the hairdresser, I can't do my nails, I can't do my little, you know, maintenance and do stuff and feel good and pick me up. I'm here and I'm just doing stuff. Same thing with the guys, you know, can't get out there, can't get to the barber, can't shave, can't do this, you know, can't get my, you know, beard groomed or whatever, my manicure, pedicure, a little massage, whatever have you, general body maintenance. What happens in that instance? It does affect us. You know, it does affect us from that standpoint. So culture is really, really, truly important. I mean, I'm quite sure we've seen so many jokes about Wendy Rahamat and her doubles, but I mean, I'm quite sure we're all missing it. It's part of our culture. It's part of our street food from that standpoint. So, interesting concept. Anyhow, tying in culture and performance is something that we need to look at. And what Armstrong and Barron are saying here, performance management is a process which contributes to the effective management of individuals and teams in order to achieve high level of organizational performance. As such, it establishes shared understanding about what is to be achieved and an approach leading and developing people, which will ensure that it is achieved. Interesting concept, and I'm not sure if you guys have performance management or PMEDs, performance management evaluation and development, or just having what is called 360 performance evaluations, where everybody goes around and evaluates everybody around them, or just having a job review, or having a one-on-one, or having a 1 month probation review, or having basically just your quarterly review that you are on track with regards to your targets. And I think this is something that culturally in Trinidad, in some local companies, are not done effective or not done as often to ensure that you can actually dig out the performance, for want of a better word, to ensure that employees remain focused on what the objectives are. And I think it's something that you guys need to take away as well and look at performance management as part of your leadership style, because it allows you to evaluate what's happening and if your targets are real and if your employees are actually making it or not. So it's an interesting concept for you to take away. So in performance management, there are 4 areas that we have been highlighting, which is measurement, appraisal, action, and monitoring, or MAM. And performance management, really and truly, is that process to ensure that you actually are achieving the objective, and by end result, organizational effectiveness. So just quickly, the first section, measurement: establish performance measures, establish measurable behavioral goals that will improve performance, measure current behaviors. And again, cultural web is also something that you would want to take into consideration. We did some of that in last lecture, is seeing where you are today. What are considered the norms in your department? What do you normally accept that you know that, okay, you know, like everybody says, oh, I'm not a morning person, you know, and whatever. And then after lunch, that lunch was so good. I need a chance to relax. I need a siesta, etc., etc. So really and truly, when you do a cultural web, it helps you understand what's happening in your organization and then how you fix it. Because sometimes you might change one modus operandi by your staff and it upsets the whole equilibrium. So you really want to understand that aspect, and looking at measurable behavioral goals is something that you need to be aware of. The other one is appraisal. Compare current behaviors with behavioral goals, identify main differences. Action. For each difference, plan how to bring actual behaviors in line with goals in order to improve performance. Implement the plan. And last is obviously monitoring it from that standpoint. So monitoring, check that new plans are being followed, return to appraisal stage to assess impact changes on the behavioral performance measures. So you do have these 4 steps to look at as part, but it's not necessarily that you have to take this. This is just strictly from Armstrong and Barron. So performance culture, Reed and Hubble basically says, in high performance cultures, effective leaders clearly articulate a strategic framework of mission, vision, and values, strategic goals, and the critical few measurable priorities. They design and take accountability for managing service-oriented, efficient business processes and structures. Leaders engage their people and work hard to learn their strengths and preferences. They manage their talent well and encourage ongoing learning. They communicate rigorously and often. And again, when you know what somebody wants, when you know the person that you're working alongside, you're almost like you could predict their action. You can predict what's needed when you're working in a project and how to become effective working together. You know, somebody naturally takes a lead in something and you know, okay, all right, I can work with Mary, I can work with Indra, I can work with Ravi, I can work with, you know, Peter or Paul or whoever. And you can just simply say, right, you know, I have no problems working with this person. I can tell him, no, let's not, let's try that. And it's like, wow, who died and made you the god of this project and whatever. And, you know, people just get ticked off for the wrong reasons. So performance culture is important. But again, I'd like to point out that, you know, in hiring someone like we did last week, cultural fit is hugely important. You have to know that the person is willing to be adaptable. You have to know that the person is willing to be able to change. You have to know that the person is willing and able to fit into the organization. Skills, academic skills are not only. It comes back to our really first lecture about traits and behaviors. Traits are something that are inside of you and there, like you're born with it, as they have said, you know, great leaders are born. Behaviors can be taught, can be managed, can be streamlined. So really, great leaders, great workers can be made, you know, but again, it has to also do with the culture of the organization. So it's really interesting to see how at the end of the lecture, a slide can actually tie in something from your very first slide. It shows that the entire leadership and organization, what Laurie Mullins is trying to get across to us, is in fact a fact. And leaders need to adapt from that standpoint and not just believe they are the end all of everything. The organization itself has a culture of its own. The staff has a culture of its own that's going to actually either make or break you as a leader. So learning that person and engaging your people and understanding what are their strengths and what are their preferences is in fact going to make a huge difference. So, you know, if you have the opportunity to read and Hubble, I would, you know, encourage you to do that. So performance culture emphasizes values, business performance as the drivers of organizational success. And Richard Daft has also professed that, you know, having organizational structure is hugely important. So if your structure is not set up, how do we actually get high performance cultures to emphasize the values and business performance? You need to have structure as well. So I encourage you as well to urge you to look at Richard Daft as well. Culture that facilitates high performance often incorporate the following values, 3 values. The whole is more important than parts, and boundaries between parts are minimized. Interesting. The whole is more important than the parts, and boundaries and between parts are minimized. So again, the end result, equality and trust are primary values. If you do not have that trust in what somebody is going to say and do and act out, it's very much an interesting, there are a couple of political books I'm reading there about President Donald Trump. And I mean, equality and trust, you would think is a primary value, but he's changed staff so much by using this word trust is unbelievable. I wonder exactly how productive they are and how we can measure that to see, it work. The third, culture encourages risk-taking, change, and improvement. Kind of a strong statement here. Culture encourages risk-taking, change, and improvement. So yes, if we need to basically have a high performance culture in achieving our goals and doing certain things, we need to take certain risks. You need to basically go out on a limb. You need to basically trust an employee, push them, give them the opportunity to rise to that occasion, give them the opportunity to lead a project, give them the opportunity to lead a department. And I think that's something that we need to really seriously take into consideration and understand that high performance culture, risk-taking is a big part of it, change and improvement. And you realize that, wow, even yourself, doing this particular degree, reading this degree, probably looking at it as a mountainous task, it was a risk, because it's like, wow, what happens? What if I don't get through? What's going on with this? What's happening with that? Um, there are some real values for us to take away from it and realize that having high performance cultures means quite a bit. It's the end result. There is going to be a certain amount of trust that you have to have, equality as primary values. You have certain risks that you're going to take. You have to change the way you do things. And it obviously is going to dig out that improvement that you're looking at. Like I said, one of the key factors that you're going to run into is how much time you've been able to create coming out of this particular program. It's amazing. And I, again, I applaud all of you all who are working and doing this particular degree. This is not easy. This is not an easy task. I have not done that. I've had the privilege to always be away from work or away from, um, being in school 100%. So, I mean, I could just imagine, and I found that to be very difficult. So what you're doing is, wow, it is definitely a high performance culture in its own way itself. So, I mean, hats off to you guys from that. So, like everything else, forces and factors that cause culture to evolve. What happens? What happens within a company? I've always professed this statement: symptom of a bigger issue. What's driving it then? In other words, what drives this behavior? What drives what's actually happening with an employee? It's always symptom of a bigger issue. I mean, yes, we've said in the very beginning that one of the most difficult tasks is managing people, and humans are going to be willful and unpredictable. But there are factors and forces that cause culture to evolve. And again, it's not far-fetched for us to say that, okay, we can categorize these factors into 10 categories as we have on the screen here. So the very first, internal crisis, revolutionary technologies, new challenges, arrival of new leaders, turnover of key employees, diversification into new business, expansion into different geographic areas, rapid growth, adding new employees, merger with or acquisition of another company, globalization. Interesting concept in terms of how they've put all of these into, but I mean, internal crisis is a huge one in terms of what happens within an organization, and these can take many different forms. technologies that have brought forward now, being able to work from home, being able to log in and do different things itself. You're getting more out of your employees now in terms of this year. What's going to happen? Are we going to have people saying, well, I need to get more pay? Is companies saying, well, I don't have to prepare a space for you. Maybe they may scale down their brick and mortar setup. You know, what's happening with the bank? Why is the bank, you know, passing all of their operational expenses to their customers? You know, the bank is barely open for 40 hours in the week itself, you know, and you have all of these digital technologies that are available now, you know, to access your money, to do certain things, but yet, you know, they still limit you in terms of what's happening. You know, how is that going to change? You know, what is the culture behind it itself? Are they going to reduce the costs of doing stuff because of these changes? You know, is doing business going to be cheaper going forward? What new challenges are going to come up? You know, a new leader coming in. You know, again, we spoke about that at Caribbean Airlines. This is a gentleman that has zero aviation experience besides being a passenger. And I mean, Mr. Madeira has come into the actual company and has come from a tech background and brought in so many revolutionary technologies to Caribbean Airlines. It's unbelievable that, yes, the culture is evolving and it is a force and a factor to be aware of. So again, new leaders can do that as well, bring in new stuff, you know, have the ability, have the connection, have the, you know, the wear it all to really bring the change that is needed within the organization. Turnover of key employees, yes, it is going to affect, especially if the organization doesn't have the culture of sharing information. We see that in the civil service where you go for service and somebody is not there and they tell you you have to come back or whatever because of the high percentage of tacit knowledge. You know, people having the knowledge in their head and it's not documented, it's not passed on. So, you know, somebody coming in and needing support, oh, you have to wait for this person because that person is the expert. And when these people leave, what happens? The organization stumbles. Sometimes they don't fall, but I mean, they do stumble and they do create a sort of a eerie feeling, for want of a better word, amongst employees. Boy, what's going to happen? Things are not looking like it's going to turn out the way it is. This is what's happening. That is what's happening. So it's interesting. Diversification into new businesses. Yeah, it certainly changed the culture at Harley Davidson. Harley Davidson, you know, has been the leaders in motorbikes since the 50s, World War One, World War Two. You know, really putting them onto the map. Into the 60s, into the 70s, they were doing well until, you know, the US government changed their regulations and allowed other companies to come in and start manufacturing and, you know, attacking what would be considered their stomping ground or their market. And it started to affect them. And in order to survive, Harley Davidson had to diversify. They went into clothes, they went into food, they had some mergers with Ford, especially the Ford F-150, which is a huge van and was designed to carry a Harley Davidson as well, you know, and it's interesting. It did change the organization, but I think it changed for the better. So something to look at. Expansion into different geographic areas, how you do things itself. McDonald's is a prime example. It's a sandwich company. And they were primarily a beef sandwich. And they chose to go into India, which is really strange. But then their veggie sandwiches took off. Their veggie, their teas, their chicken sandwiches. It's unbelievable. And all the different sauces that they developed in the Indian market, the curry sauces and spicy sauces that they gave with their fries, they changed. They changed the way that they do things. They did things. It's kind of a little bit different. You know, it's like very much in Trinidad, we put ketchup on everything. I mean, what does that do for us? What does that do for I mean, and then mind you, when we use the American ketchup, we find that it's so tangy and vinegary, and for want of a better word, or bitter or acidic, because our ketchup has pumpkin and tomatoes and sugar in it. I mean, if you look at the bottle, it's incredible. It's relatively sweet. Yes, so culturally, we do have a problem with diabetes because, again, look at the amount of soft drinks that we have on the island. Look at the amount of snacks we have on the island as well. The amount of sweet that actually happens from that. So yes, sometimes going into different geographic areas changes the way our organization operate, and you try to probably pick and choose, or some of these cultural things affect us and eventually come back to headquarters. Rapid growth, adding new employees, and this is something that I think even as you being young leaders and eventually becoming CEOs or chief operating officers or department heads, or even prepare to own and run businesses that you may start up as an entrepreneur, rapid growth does create a challenge. How do you have, and this is really debatable for us to say, should we have organic growth, or should we really push for always having new employees? How do you have, what do you set up for induction training? Organic growth allows you to have those stories, those rituals. It allows you to keep the core values of the old company, so to speak, on why you would want certain things, why you would want stuff to happen. So interesting concept of, again, a factor causing it. Mergers with acquisitions and other companies. Yes, when you joined, I don't know if you all remembered the bank called Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. Totally different. They didn't merge with Republic Bank. They were bought out by Republic Bank. And you could have seen that the employees from CIBC struggled, you know, at in the very beginning, because it was a different organization, different company, different way it, you know, it operated from that standpoint. So really strange in terms of how quickly a culture can be influenced into another company through a merger and acquisition. So it's something real to have as well. In India, one of the more palatable mergers is Hero Honda. So Hero was into motorbikes, and they had a very big motorbike um, market share in India, and they merged with Honda. Now, the good thing about it is that Honda was good in small engines. And I mean, that Hero Honda scenario has blossomed incredibly. It has allowed for the redesign of the Hero bike and stuff using some of Honda's techniques and stuff like that. And it allowed Honda to actually enter that market as well, because it's humongous from that standpoint. So really interesting point to consider. And then obviously globalization, you know, going global, what has to happen, what takes place with the company, you know, and how do you get that culture to be one and the same across the globe as well. So again, forces and factors causing culture to evolve is truly important. So culture, strategy, execution, is it going to be an ally, or is it going to be an obstacle? What do you think it is? Do we go steady and slow? Do we run a mile a minute? It's really interesting, you know, how it works. So 3 points to consider. Culture can contribute to or hinder successful strategy execution. People not willing to buy in, what's going to happen. Maybe the union might stop you from doing something, expanding. They don't agree with it. They see it as job losses or loss of pay or too much automation happening itself. So culture truly important in this aspect. Ally or obstacle? I'm still debating on that one. I'll leave it up to you to see. Requirements for successful strategy execution may or may not be compatible with culture. Again, truly, you know, can people handle all of these changes? What's happening? Can we really go back to the way it was? Are we able to basically realize that, you know, the earth can survive without humans, but humans can't survive without the earth? at some point in time, we are just a very small part of all of this. And I think now we're realizing that from that standpoint. The earth is healing itself because we stopped doing certain things. My industry, I mean, is hurting horribly. They are roughly what, at any point in time, 41,000 aircrafts. Within the US alone, there are generally 16,000 aircrafts flying at any point in time. All of these are actually now grounded to some extent. I mean, there are barely 8,000 aircrafts flying, in the day. It's just unbelievable. What's going to happen? How is it going to start back up? What's going to happen with regards to pollution? What's going to happen with regards to starting back up the industry? So again, you know, successful strategy execution, yes, it has to do and it has to be compatible with culture, how things are done, what's actually going on. Basically in Dubai, the Dubai airport, they've launched this tunnel that passengers basically walk through, and they spray the passenger with disinfectants in a 360 scenario. And, so you come out and they basically minimizing the risk of that cross infections and what's happening before you enter the airport. Again, culture, how is that going to change? What's going to happen? Obviously, a close match between culture, strategy promotes effective, whoops, sorry. I'm not seeing my, 1 second. Right. Right. Close match between culture and strategy promotes effective strategy execution. So what we are actually saying is that, is it the case of the tortoise and the hare? Is it always going to be that? What's happening, and how do you approach something? Culture really plays an important part. So again, something for you to take. Do I actually do a knee-jerk reaction? Do I go slow and sure? Do I verify? Obviously, we've heard colloquially, as we would say, the old person saying, or the old people saying, don't make a decision when you are upset. It's a cultural thing. It's going to be a knee-jerk reaction. It could be the wrong decision because it's going to be more of an emotional decision rather than something that's really thought out from that standpoint, right? So why culture matters, and what are the benefits of good culture and strategy fit? So interesting, 3 points here to look at. Strategy supports supportive cultures, shape mood, temperament of the workforce, positively affecting organizational energy, work habits, operating practices. Again, really looking out for your employees, getting them to understand what's actually happening, having that positive energy. Sometimes you come into the office and things seems very lethargic. Again, how do you get that mood? How do you have that temperament and stuff happening? I mean, yesterday was Friday. Did it feel like Friday? Did you have that Friday evening lime? Did you have that, Friday evening get together? Did we try to do it electronically, maybe even with Zoom or Teams or Skype or a WhatsApp chat? What did we do to really get the mood going from that perspective? So again, shaping mood and temperament is important, and it is a supportive culture in terms of getting things done. Provide standards, values, informal rules, peer pressures that nurture and motivate people to do their jobs in ways that promote good strategy execution. We've always had that situation. I am not sure if you would have had that in class. Well, at some point in time, I think some schools basically streamlined. So all the bright people was in one class, which was usually called the A class, and you have the B class and the C class and so forth. But you would have had teachers that would have placed people according to how their peers could have helped them. So you put a strong with a weak so that the strong can actually help the weak as well. The strong is going to basically be able to develop patience, develop that attitude towards helping somebody and so forth and whatever. Didn't always quite work out, but you know, it's something that you need to look at in terms of and exactly what this supportive culture is saying. Provide standard values, informal rules, peer pressure, nurture and motivate people, you know, in doing their jobs. The last, strengthening employee identification with the company, its performance targets and strategy. And again, you know, showing how you are contributing, showing where you are in the link of the organization, and why if you falter, the entire organization is going to stumble. It's all part of the one big massive wheel, and you know how that's going to happen. Again, benefits of good culture, again, going into from the other two that we have, stimulate people to take on the challenge of realizing the company's vision, you know, getting people to do their jobs competently, having that enthusiasm, that can-do attitude itself. Um, how do you create the optimal condition at work? Promoting that can-do attitude, being able to accept change, breeds and needed capabilities. I mean, you know, in other words, you are basically showing that an organization needs its employees. You know, how often do you feel needed in your job from that standpoint? What would you do different if you are the boss? In basically looking at your charges, and as a leader, would you basically say to them, hey, what are you missing from me, right, that is not allowing you to do a good job? Am I keeping you back? Am I hindering you back? What tools are you missing? What training are you missing? What tacit knowledge do you require to be able to do your job effectively? When was the last did we see that as a boss, as a leader, as a manager? So the flip side is obviously what promotes unhealthy or low performance culture. So some points to consider for here. Politicized internal environment, issues resolved on basis of turf, hostility to change, experimentation and efforts, right? Status quo discouraged. Avoid risk, don't screw up, you know, because I'm not taking a chance because, oh, I'm going to be nailed to the cross. I'm not changing the way we did this because this is how we've been doing it, even though for the last 20 years you're doing it wrong. So you're not going to take the risk because you've been chastised in the past or you've been labeled, or, you know, across the board. So you obviously don't feel empowered to basically do that. So obviously, hey, I'm just going to do what I'm supposed to do. That's my job. I'm not required to do more than that. You know, what's happening from that perspective. Promotion of managers more concerned about process and details than results. And we did say that in the beginning. Managers do things right and leaders do the right thing. So again, you know, basically following the process and not really looking at what's really happening and what's going on. The process is there to guide. You know, it's people driven. It's not the process driving the person. Aversion to look outside for superior practice, right? Must be invented here syndrome. If it doesn't happen here, it can't happen anywhere else. I mean, again, you know, something that really keeps us back. There are lots of organizations that do things great. And why not? Why can't we pick and choose some of those great things from there? There's a book called Jim Collins, Going from Good to Great. You know, why a lot of companies make it to the good level, but they can't get to the great. Interesting book. You should try looking at it. I think there's an online version or there's an online snippet of it. All right, Jim Collins, Going from Good to Great. It's a fantastic read if you get the opportunity to. And coming from a guy I don't like to read, that's a big thing. So, you know, look at it if you get a chance. So, hallmarks of adaptive cultures. Introduction of new strategies, right? Achieve superior performance, strategic agility, fast response to new condition. What are we doing? What are we doing now? Are we changing? Are we looking at an online? I mean, I applaud Massey stores for their two stages of their grab and go bag. One is 150, one is 300. Why not take it to the next level? Why not online? PriceSmart is now saying, look, listen, you can actually email your orders. It's going to be picked and it's going to be delivered, but it has to be delivered via credit card, right? That's their payments that they're doing from that standpoint. Again, strategic agility, fast response to the condition that's actually happening. A lot of people doing home deliveries, a lot of people doing stuff. You know, it's interesting. Risk-taking, experimentation, innovation to satisfy stakeholders, because, you know, you have to make it happen. How are you going to make it happen? What else can we deliver from that standpoint in a sort of situation that is enforcing social distancing? What businesses can come out of this? What can we do from that standpoint? Is it now that we have the ability to create home offices? What are we doing with regards to laptops, internets, access? You know, are they going to improve that? Are they going to drop the cost? You know, are they going to push for the more fiber to the home project, et cetera, et cetera? So lots of stuff in terms of to think about in terms of adaptive cultures, proactive approaches to implement workable solutions. We now have to look at moving away from the cash base. I mean, the banks are going to love it from that standpoint, even though they have never supported it in terms of I think they love the cash society that exists. We're now going to move into a bit of a cashless society. A lot of things going to have to move online. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Can't say for sure. We still have a lot of cash happening. Without the electronic funds transfer, you know, if it doesn't improve, if it doesn't evolve, how is it going to happen? There's still quite a bit of unbanked persons, maybe a lot of farmers, a lot of support help, a lot of vendors, what we would consider at this point in time non-essential. How are they operating? Can they transfer money? Is anybody teaching them how to become banked? I mean, can they see it worth that while? So we still have a lot of unbanked people in the world as well as in Trinidad. So, I mean, people just use the bank just to put their money because they don't want to keep it at home. What's happening? Are we going to see digital currency take off? Is that something that's going to really, wow, make a difference? With digital currency and a digital wallet, I could transfer money from Trinidad to Jamaica, and it's just the central banks would have to work out. The money goes from my digital wallet into my Jamaican counterpart digital wallet. It leaves here in Trinidad currency and it reaches there in Jamaican automatically. That's what digital currency is going to allow us. It's going to reduce some of the trade barriers, maybe, maybe not. It's going to improve the culture. It's going to not stop us. It's going to help us to innovate. One of the biggest challenges is obviously getting money across into China. They don't accept PayPal because of the whole scenario. I mean, it's incredible what they do and how they operate. So entrepreneurship, encouraged, rewarded. Top managers exhibit genuine concern for customers, employees, shareholders, suppliers. It's all something that we need to look at and realize, hey, wow, that's the way we need to look at. That's the way we need to be. What's happening? Like I've said in some of the other classes, what's the difference? What's the strategy between Raj selling oily comestibles and Jean Paul selling a pastry like Les Doublés? I mean, we've had that big scenario with one of our local chefs making doubles, and so many people had to say so many things about it. At the end of the day, you know, I mean, is it going to change the way that we do the doubles? I mean, I don't know, maybe. I mean, eating a doubles at the doubles vendor and eating a doubles takeaway is two different things, especially when it's wrapped up. So in my scenario with Raj and Jean Paul is creating a CKD doubles, complete knockdown. The bara separate, chana separate, you know, all the chutneys separate, and it's in a box. You put it together, you know, you build your own. Would that be evolving to other sandwiches? I mean, many times Some of us probably might like a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich, but if you don't eat it right away, the tomatoes causes the sandwich or the bread to get soggy. So is it an option to actually do a CKD sandwich? Is it going to evolve? Again, adaptive cultures. How are we doing stuff? How are we, working in that particular manner? So yes, we have to look at different ways to look at. Again, the characteristics for performance is consistent. You have to have a benchmark. You have to look at it from that standpoint. People need to be energized, confident, know what to do, relate to each other. They need to be excited in what it is they're doing. And if you have these things, you are going to make a profit. You are going to basically be profitable as an organization. What's happening from that? What is stopping us from inventing stuff? What is stopping us from saying to people, again, we have all of these issues now with regards to masks. What are we doing? Why aren't we injecting into the small home cottage industry, get all of these seamstresses and tailors to make something? What's happening? Why can't we pattern what's going on? One of the big things is coming out of this is that air conditioning filters have actually been known now to actually stop certain particles from coming in. So do we go and buy an air conditioned filter and cut it up and make a mask and sticky that there so that we can breathe, clean air? We can breathe in, filtered air. We can breathe in, uncontaminated. We can walk about a little bit freer. I mean, it's again, how do we get that? How do we energize people? How do we get that? It's all characteristics of, for good performance, for high performance. And once you have that, it's going to take it to that level from that standpoint. So the business case, how do we get to that particular business performance? And I've highlighted here these 5 items: learning and development, senior leadership, image, reputation. That's your primary influence. The secondary, openness to challenge, getting people into it. The tertiary influence, empowerment. What are we going to do? How are we going to empower people? That's what's going to have that workforce engagement. That's what is going to get us that business performance. So it's an interesting concept for us to think about, and the way that we need to think about it as managers, in our whole scenario. So 5 lead roles for managers to consider: performance and development strategies, right? We're looking at, you have solution enablers, you have learning experience architecture, you have opportunity broker, you have the honest appraiser. So they've broken it down into 3 sections or 3 stages to look at, and it has shown you a percentage of the average impact of these roles and activities on employee performance. So in the planning stage, there's a 12.8%, right? In an evaluation, there's, 11.8%. Sorry, just need to drink something there. So, I mean, when you look at that by itself, that's almost 14% possibility of improved employee performance. Having a solution enabler, 8.7%. Learning experience architect, 19.4%. So just planning and evaluation and learning experience alone is what you're looking at, can have a massive impact on your employee performance. It's 40% plus, close to almost 42%. But it's interesting to note itself that you have the solution enabler, the opportunity broker itself, that was going to help you go down that particular path. So an interesting slide that you should keep from a work perspective to look at moving forward. Our goals, again, something I did said is in terms of I had people, process, and tools. This is people, process, and technology. Design a best-in-class performance management system that aligns employees' performance and development with Stanford's mission and culture of excellence. So it's all about people, process, and technology. And again, it's not process that's going to drive the people. It's people driving the process and using the technology to achieve that objective. So really interesting to remember that. So organizational effectiveness is largely considered to be about organizational behavior. And the behavior is knowing that I'm going to have a review. I'm going to have this to be analyzed. We are going to have a postmortem. We are going to have a discussion about it. But at the end of the day, I'm not losing my job. At the end of the day, it's just going to help me do my job better from that standpoint. This is basically what it's coming down to. Organizational effectiveness can be defined as the extent to which an organization achieves its goals. How effective are you? What are you doing? Are your employees just there and coming to work for a salary? Are you getting the most out of them? How do you continuously motivate them from that standpoint? Interesting. Uh, Factors affecting the organization effectiveness: causal variables, intervening variables, and result variables. Causal variables are those independent variables that determine the course of developments within an organization, the objectives achieved by the organization. These causal variables include only those independent variables which can be altered by the organization and its management. So it's interesting: policies, decisions, business, leadership strategies, skills, behavior. Intervening variables: loyalties, attitudes, motivation, performance goals, perceptions of all members and their collective capacity for the effective interactions, communication, decision making. Are people coming to work and they just sit at the desk and they just, well, I need to do this and I just need to enter my information. I need to just stay and do my stuff. You know, do we interact? Hi, how things going? How is everything? What's happening? You know, and being part of that team, having that intervening, having that, you know, attitude towards your other workers, etc., your other colleagues. And results variables. And results variables are dependent variables that reflect achievement of the organization, productivity, cost, loss, earnings. Are these being reported? Are people seeing that we had a good month, a bad month? Do they know what's actually happening? Do we have that gong bell theory for the small businessman, knowing what it is I have to make on a daily basis, knowing all my operational costs, and know that once I achieve that operational cost, bam, anything after that is going to be profit. Understanding that aspect of it, having that gong bell theory, you know, waiting for that bell to ring to know, bang, right, oh, shoo, I've made my expenses. Okay, good. You know, what's happening from that perspective? Do we have that? Do we have that dashboards? Do we have those abilities to monitor that itself? You know, it's all part of it. So how do we look at that as well? And one of the interesting concepts that you need to look at is something called balance scorecard. And what balance scorecard does, it allows you to evaluate how you are doing from 4 different perspectives. So quite quickly, balance scorecards are commonly referenced in businesses are an effective, a powerful tool to balance the various priorities of business. In their origins, they tackle the need to move away from purely financial outcomes and measure performance against a range of quantitative and qualitative goals. It is also intended as a vehicle to reflect on actions, aligning efforts to things that will help deliver all of the organization's goals rather than simply being used as a tracker for KPIs. So, employee engagement is one aspect. Business leaders have long been convinced of the idea that employee engagement is a good thing and the more of it leads to better performance. However, as we looked at, there are a variety of views of what employee engagement is and therefore how it should be measured. So the balance scorecard is basically showing you exactly what it is here for now. Financials, customer, internal, which is your employee, right? What's actually happening, innovation and learning. What are you doing itself from that standpoint? Okay. So, second. Right, just checking my microphone there. 1, 2, yep, I'm on. Sorry, I just hit my headset there. Apologies. Right, so yes, so the balance scorecard is important. It's not just looking at the financial aspect. What is your customers seeing? What's going on? Let's go into it itself. So the financial perspective covers financial objectives of the organization and allows us to track financial success and obviously the shareholder value. The other one is customer perspectives, covers the customer objectives such as customer satisfaction, market share goals, as well as product and service attributes. Are you delivering what you say you're delivering? When have you done a monkey survey? Monkey surveys around, you can quickly put up 10 questions and you push it out to your customers. What's your customer perspective? Are you really satisfied? What is your market share? Are you really into the sandwich market? What's Prestige Holdings in that scenario in terms of that fast food market? Clearly, they are the leader with their 60-something branches of KFC and 30-something branches of Subway. I mean, they've clearly tied up the chicken market and they've tied up the sandwich market, you know, I mean, from that standpoint. But again, what's their customer perspective? What's happening? How are they dealing with what's going on now with regards to the current COVID-19 situation? So customer perspective is important. Internal process perspective. How are you dealing with what's going on? Do you have all the processes in places? Are you able to evaluate your employees? Are you able to look at all your logistics scenario? Are you able to look at ordering? Are you doing things in a just-in-time delivery scenario, right? So it covers the internal operational goals, outline the key processes necessary to deliver the customer objective, deliver that service. What is needed? Do I have the ability? Do I have a business continuity plan? Do I have that set up from that standpoint? And the last one is the learning and growth perspective. This is about your employees itself. It covers the intangible drivers of future success, such as human capital. What are you doing? Are you ensuring that there is development taking place with your employees? Are you doing training? Are you ensuring that there is, in fact, what are your goals? What can you achieve in this calendar year or this financial year? I'm going to get a certification. I'm going to learn to do Microsoft Word. I'm going to learn to do Outlook. I'm going to do PowerPoint. I'm going to get that Microsoft Office User Specialist certification so I can be an expert in handling that. You know, again, organizational capital, information capital, including skills. Do I have a knowledge base? Do I have a Wikipedia that I can actually send? Do I have a training folder? Do I have a video, an induction video? What, you know, all of these is basically falls into learning and growth perspective. So what Balance Scorecard does is not just look to see if you're making money. You could be making money, you know, but you're turning over staff. You're eventually going to have a poor learning and growth perspective. You're going to have poor internal processes. It's going to catch up with you. You might be making in 1 or 2 quarters, and then the other 2 quarters, you're just trying to play catch up. You're going to have a bad customer perspective. You can have a bad reputation as a hiring, as a poor company, as a poor culture. So Balance Scorecard allows you to not just look at financial, to look at the customer aspect, to look at how you run your business internally, as well as your employee and growth perspective. What are you learning? Are you looking at it from that perspective? So again, really interesting, powerful tool. I have a whole separate presentation on Balance Scorecard with regards to governance. If you need, or any one of you all need to see this in more in depth, feel free, and I can always just send you the PDF. Just email me and I'll email it to you, you know, directly. It's good information to share. It's good information to have even from a departmental standpoint as a head of department. So really interesting from that standpoint. So for leaders to have an influence of an organizational effective, they may need to acquire and develop a range of skills, typically categorized in 3 areas: strategic or conceptual skills, relational skills, and technical or functional skills. So again, as a leader, you need to have that conceptual, being able to consider the complexities of the organization, align your action planning and business goals to that conceptual idea to take the organization forward. Relational skills, sometimes still referred as soft skills, by increasing proven to be the difference between effective and ineffective leaders. You know, the soft skills is really you, how you deal with things. Are you going to fly off the handle? How are you going to deal with something? You know, the hard and soft skills of organizations is something that we really need to look at. And this is a whole different level of topic that we can go off on a tangent quite easily. And soft skills is really something that we need to do. It has to do with emotional intelligence as well, you know, and how you deal with something, you know, and not just heading in and looking at the hard skills to say, right, this is the process, this is what has happened, this is what is laid out, or whatever have you. Okay, you know what? Listen, just don't worry. Take the time off. Do this. When you come back, we'll sit down. We'll look at it. We'll evaluate where things have gone wrong. Giving that sense of, all right, I'm not just going to label you. This has gone wrong. That's it. Bam. 3 strikes, you're out. What happened? What challenge? Where did I go wrong? Where did the company go wrong? What's happening with that aspect? That's a bit of a relational skills you're looking at. Technical and functional skills, these are typically acquired through experience, training. Being in that role, you've been there, done that. People know that, okay, it's like parents and kids. Kids believe parents just dropped from the sky. They were never young, and they never did anything wrong. So, is that the case as well? So an employee come in, who is you, blah, 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 whatever have you. So, having that authority, having that technical functional skills, it allows you to have that, experience, that ability to basically say, hey, I know exactly what I'm doing. This is what can actually work. And again, it leads to effectiveness. So really, really, truly important. So just to wrap up, again, organizational effectiveness has a lot to do with measurement. It has to do with also culture. It has to do with the organizational culture in terms of the company itself. And it ties back into, if you are the manager, you have to hire people that are going to be culturally fit into your organization. Once you have that type of a attitude, you can then develop high performance culture. I posted an article, sent an article, a PDF there with an interview with someone. Really interesting read. Take a read of it. It's a company out of India and how they develop that high performance culture. So really important to look at from there. So my last slide is references. Obviously, the CIPD, Chartered Institute of Professional Development, Johnson Schools and Whittington. This is Exploring Corporate Strategy. John Cotter, Leading Change. Lewing, Frontiers in Group Dynamics. It's definitely something to look at. And Organizational Behavior. Again, besides having your Laurie Mullins Cortex itself, which I posted to you, her chapter 23, which basically what we covered. There are a couple of other things as well too in there, but it should make a good read for you. Right, so I have some videos, which I will just
power off. Power on.
Right, so let me just
auxiliary mode.
Get
Vinod, Dice que el 90% de las mujeres alguna vez fingió. ¿Vos alguna vez fingiste?
No, te daría cuenta. Azúcar en otra sí.
Azúcar.
Una cucharadita, dos.
Dos.
A little different there. I'm not sure if I like that, but I mean, at the end of the day, you know, a little bit of trust there. You're not even sure what's actually happening, so challenge. Um, like I've said, you know, perception is the reality of the uninformed. So this is an interesting.
AmeriQuest Mortgage, proud sponsor of the NFL.
So perception is the reality of the uninformed. Clearly, you know, you could be uninformed there. This one is a funny one, and I'm not sure if I played it before, but I'll just play it again. This is a bear commercial from Australia.
Yeah, it's good, eh, bro? Go again. Okay. I think it's all in the neck. Do it one more time. All right. Ready? Nick agility, Bills. What? Nick agility. The last man? Come on. You try it. Nah. Come on. Try it. Harder, bro. You need to do it harder. Go and do mine again, nigga. It sounded hard. Sharp enough. No. Left plus.
Well, I'm not sure about Nick agility. Clearly, the guy needs to learn a lot of stuff there. So that's that 3 videos there itself. I think we can safely say that you understand how that works and how the whole the culture of taking advantage of somebody and what's actually happening. So moving forward right now is I now need to prepare some information regarding your assignment 2 and trying to get that out to you. I don't know if anyone has any questions that they want to ask, or feel free. You can either type it in or, say, if not a problem. I'll basically try to get Jude to send out some information. I've looked at CW1. So I just looked at about the first 5, and people have actually submitted. I haven't seen any late submissions or late penalizations itself. So I'm sure that they're going to start correcting shortly itself. I have not been given any to correct. I'm a little bit trying to distance myself from that, mainly because the questions were very similar to what I posted. So I was a little bit disappointed in that aspect, that they could have changed up things a little bit. But nevertheless, that's behind us now. So we'll see how it goes from there. So wish everybody to really, continue to stay safe, be safe. So I have a couple questions. From one, is there some sort of structure that we should use? I think that in the actual assignment brief itself that is there is a standard structure. So we'll send out something. We'll send out a good assignment and a bad assignment. but I will actually guide you along it this week itself. So expect some emails from me along those lines. So one other question there. Oh no, that's just a hail out. So hi, sir. Right. So again, you guys need to stay safe, stay home, only go out when it's necessary. What can I say? Enjoy Netflix. Those of you into movies, do check out a movie series, very short series. It's called Jack Ryan, real good conspiracy theory thing itself, with the Russians and Venezuela and all that sort of stuff. Really nice. Pretty good. Again, um, there was one with a lawyer. I think it's called The Good Wife. Don't know if it ever showed in Trinidad, but I started that series. Going really, really good, really interesting, really strange. So again, you know, do take advantage of being home. Do take advantage of, you know, all the online stuff that's free out there as well. Continue to look at your own personal development. Continue to look at your safety of your immediate family, of yourself. Be safe. If you guys need anything, feel free to email, send it out, and I'll certainly, you know, respond to you accordingly. So do have a good rest of the day and enjoy the weekend. And next week, Saturday, we'll probably be doing just the end of lecture 11, which I think should just be one topic is what he's suggesting. And then I will go through CW2 and its format and its other stuff and what's actually happening from there. The recording for this particular lecture is going to be made available. Jude would send out that information to you guys. If you need anything more, again, feel free to write him. I hope your other classes are going well and you're not too frustrated. And, you know, by being by yourself, you know, that can also affect you. So, you know, hang in there. The light is at the end of the tunnel. Things are, you know, going to turn pretty soon. So have a good day, everybody, and we will talk again. Bye for now.